But, yeah, because they never were particularly close friends.
Mm-hmm.
No. I don't think Mother quite approved of Mrs. Griever, and I know darn well Mrs. Griever didn't approve of her because she was really put out that Bill was marrying me.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's overdone with too. But I always think of that brand new sheet on that floor.
Have you ever had any contact with those missionaries in the years?
Well, when Paul was born, he had this pylorus stenosis problem, so that he was in and out of the hospital all the time. But they would never actually come to having surgery done until finally there was no choice.
What is that? Explain what it is.
Well, that's the opening between the stomach and the small intestines. Only in his case, it was only partially closed. If it had been completely closed, he would have been an emergency, and the Army would have operated on him at no cost.
Mm-hmm.
As it was, he had to go into a civilian hospital at considerable cost. Not by today's terms, but on a second lieutenant's salary,
Sure.
believe me.
That's when the regular doughboy was getting $21 a month.
Yeah, Bill was getting $125. John Hinckley was stationed at Fort out of Richmond, I forget which fort, and came and spent a weekend with us while Paul was in the hospital, and we were to get him out of the hospital that evening. We took John to Hampton to catch the bus, and no, Newport News. That's where the hospital was. And then we were to pick up Paul. We lacked $10 of having enough to get him out, and they made us keep him there another 24 hours and pay that much more, because we didn't have the full amount of money. Anyway, Mother contacted one of those missionaries, because one of them was still there. Of course, his partner had changed. And they came over and blessed Paul before he finally had his surgery, and gave him a name at that time. And of course he was in a little old ragged hospital shirt and skinny. He got his birth weight back when he was 6 weeks old.
I see, no kidding.
But that was the second contact with him, and I have a picture of the elder.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember his name now. But I remember just, it was so nice to have to know. And Bill was there, and when they did this blessing, and of course they should have had that surgery a month beforehand, because the minute it was over, he started to perk up. They gave him blood transfusions. Now this was before that RH factor was found. I have a negative blood factor, which we found out when Johnny was coming along, the only other time I had a blood test. And I called Bill, or left word for him. I couldn't find him when they wanted to do this. So he could come over to Newport News and be tested. And he didn't come for quite a while. And so they said, oh, well, it's all right. We can always transfuse a mother. And I've wondered since what would have happened if they had. Because as it turned out, Bill got there. They're both of them and he transfused him. And they transfused him into Paul's head.
Oh?
These needles went into his head on either side like this.
Never heard of such a thing.
I don't know if maybe that was an easier vein to find.
For a baby.
In one that small. And every morning when the orderly would come by and he'd stick his head in, oh, is that kid still alive? I didn't think he'd make it through the night.
So that's giving comfort.
Oh, yes, yeah. We had to have a special nurse after his surgery, which was hard to find. So she could only come for one shift from 4 to midnight or whatever it was. And I did it the rest of the time. The hospital fed her, but they wouldn't even bring me one thing. One day, one of the girls, one of the little practitioners brought me a cup of coffee, and she was in trouble. And I've never figured that out either. And I kept those papers. We paid that private nurse for an 8-hour shift $5.
No kidding. That is astonishing.
Yeah, and that was an awkward shift. You know, you generally are paid more for that shift, and it was $5.
But that was a lot of money.
Well, yes, for what we had, yeah. Bill got Uncle Sam passed a ruling that his ROTC background, in which he was an officer for that they owed him some clothing allowance, which is the only reason we ever got him out of the hospital. Paul would have been there yet. Because they gave him something like $200 or $300 for a clothing allowance.
What's your first remembrance of Bill?
Oh, there again, Bill was always around. I can't say, because, you know, he was in and out of the house. He dated Ruth before he dated me.
Also Adele, I guess.
Well, Adele at University of Wyoming, not up here, of course. Yeah. So, I can't say honestly.
He was just around.
Just around, But the first date I ever had with him was, I was a freshman in high school. But then there was 2 or 3 years gap before that happened again, and it was only because Ruth was gone. That night he says, well, you can come go for a ride with me. You know?
I see.
Yeah.
Well, you must have been pretty small stuff for somebody as far along in school as he was.
Just, you know, he was so suave, so sophisticated, so adult, so everything, as a freshman in college. And for some reason I think of Warren Kogel as a freshman in college, when he was one, and I thought, eee! But, you know, as a high school kid, a freshman in college is
Yes.
yeah.
Tell me a thing or two about your high school experience. What, were you a good student?
Yeah. You know, I think of all the time that I wasted in my life, but I wouldn't want to go back and do it over again.
Oh.
We took mechanical drawing just off the band room in the basement of that old high school. And Craig Thomas was the teacher, and we had big boards and stools, you know, regular drawing boards. And Craig Thomas would always go along, put his hands on your hips as he went by, you know, kind of a little feel as he went by. I think that was the only reason I passed. You could also crawl out the window and be gone for that period and then come back.
I see.
Because Fritz Felsheim and Otis Tucker and Harold Brumman and those older ones always had a car, and they would drive up alongside the high school, and you scoot out the window and away you go, see.
So what you learned in first grade you didn't forget?
Yes, well, I sure forgot
freshman.
them. Yeah, but I took it because he also did leather work. Now, how that tied in with mechanical drawing, I don't know. But I still have the big, wide bucking belt that I made in mechanical drawing.
Out of leather.
Tooled on the inside and appliqued on the back. It's a black and white one.
I see.
Yeah. Craig Thomas was an unusual teacher. I took 4 years of math under him just because I liked him, and I don't remember a thing he taught me. But he always passed me. So I must have gotten passing grades. Had to have. I remember when the ceiling or the roof blew off of the gymnasium. The wind was terrific that day. We were in typing class, and Mr. Miller said, "Everybody grab a typewriter." But they let out school, and we got in George Heald's car. Went by the Safeway and bought some cheese and crackers and what have you, and parked up on the edge of the hill just above where Peg Coe's house is now, and watched that windstorm. Watched Winninger's barn, or garage, blow over. It had a west entrance, and that wind just, you know, trees fell over. Oh, it was a wonderful day. We just had a great time. Heck with the destruction. Yeah.
Well, of course, at that age,
Oh yeah.
you don't
who cares?
think about the economics of
No,
such a.
no. Just a good idea to get out of school. Sure.
Were you involved in any extracurricular type things?
Oh well, of course the pep squad.
Pep squad?
And then I was the soprano on the quartet, you know, for
What
assembly
quartet?
programs. Well, they always had a quartet and a sextet, and you sang at assembly programs.
Was the quartet and the sextet a part of a formal music
Mm,
program? And you were
no, evidently
trained-
not, because it was always before class, before school that you practiced.
I see. And who?
And Dixie Thurston was with me.
But who was the one that organized these quartets and sextets?
Well, isn't that funny? I don't really remember. Ruth was in the one ahead of me. You know, I mean, they always had one. Pat was in one. When they first organized the Relief Society here in Cody, instead of having a Relief Society choir, they had singing mothers. So Mother
I
had
remember that.
Ruth and Esther Kogel and all of her contemporaries form the Singing Mothers. And they went to Cali and gave a part of a thing, and Art Wells says, boy, if I'm ever going to have a mother, that's the kind I want. I don't remember who besides Ruth and Esther Kogel were in it. You know. Of course, the pep squad was big in high school.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. I mean, if you were in the pep squad, you were dead. Harriet Parr was the president one year. Oh, she was mean. But we put on some good shows, because she wouldn't have it any other way, you know? Yeah. I just was sure that everybody that came to the games always came to see the pep squad. I'm sure the players had nothing to do, you know.